Folks, hello. Very good. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on number one, where you're listening from, and secondly, what time you're listening back at, whether that's obviously live here right now, or indeed listening back to one of our playbacks on podcast, or indeed on YouTube. Delighted to welcome you here this morning. Folks, my name is Rob Magee. I'm the CEO at Ingenio. And for those of you who don't know who we are and what we do, we have two businesses that are very specifically built to help, number one, people get hired by organizations in the SaaS software and technology space. And the second is a recruitment business that helps those very same SaaS software and technology businesses grow and scale from a recruitment perspective. So I'm delighted to join you from Dublin. Great to be back in Dublin. I've been in the UK for the last couple of months, and really good to be back, and really excited to finish off the last topic in our July series, which has been really specifically focused on helping those candidates who are very specifically interested in getting hired by SaaS software and technology organizations specifically. If I just talk a little bit about obviously what we've been doing over the course of July, the reason that you're registered and tuned in and watching is obviously to hear me talk and coach you through how to manage those very tricky and difficult conflict questions in an interview. But what we've done over the course of the last 3 weeks, and this has been a first for us, is we've had a number of our recruiters join the sessions and basically give live real-time advice, feedback, answer a load of questions, and the feedback that we've had has been fantastic. So and obviously, look, keep that coming. But look, you are here today to hear me talk about conflict questions. And I guess, look, just to frame the session for a second, okay? When we built Ingenio Learning and when we developed our course that we sell last year, one of the key things that one of the key reasons why we did that was to help people really understand that entire hire process, right? So look, there's a lot of career coaching, there's a lot of kind of proposition shop window stuff, there's a lot of insight into tech, and then there's a lot of real specific kind of value add pieces around, you know, what should an application process look like? You know, what does your CV, your LinkedIn profile look like? How do you target hiring managers? You know, what do you do when you get into an interview, you know, and subsequent, and so on and so forth. Probably the section of our course that gets the heaviest usage, and we see this in terms of the stats where students have purchased the course and have gone back over and over again, is the interview piece. And look, what I wanted to just reframe or reset for those of you maybe who are new to these sessions this morning is there are 4 absolutely key and crucial sections to an interview, okay? And basically, they follow a structure, and if they don't, if you miss out on one of these key sections, our stats, our analysis, and our insight from our clients basically tells us that you're unlikely to progress from an interview perspective. So it's really important that you effectively control the interview in as much as you possibly can, number one, that you prepare across these key sections, and that really what you try and do is engineer some structure to be able to get you through these 4 sections. Those 4 sections, we go into a raft of this stuff, a raft more detail on our course. So let the interviewer open up, let them talk about themselves, let them talk about their role, let them talk about the business, let them talk about their background experience, let them talk about the role. And the really important that you don't jump in on any or interrupt on any of that stuff, because you're gonna get some absolute golden nuggets in that piece in their own language. And the real key tip there is to try and reuse that in their language. at some point over the course of the interview. The next one is the you story. I cannot emphasize how important it is to have this absolutely nailed. And again, there's a whole section on this one in our course. But look, this is the you story. It starts right now. It works backwards. It doesn't start at school or university and run all the way up to right now. These guys, whatever job you're going for, they're going to hire you for what you are doing right now and probably what you've done over the last 6, 12, or 18 months max. Okay. So that's really, really important that you get that nailed and right. Next section, we're going to talk a little bit about, this is the bones of the context for what we're talking about today, is this two-way Q&A. So what I mean by two-way Q&A is an interviewer firing questions at you, and they will be based on the role, based on your personality, based on culture, based on fit, based on specific experience, whatever the case may be. And again, loads and loads of prep to go and do. We're going to be talking about the conflict questions specifically today. But really importantly, what a lot of people miss and mess up is, what questions are you going to ask? And again, we talk about this. We have a mantra in Ingenio, which is positive, curious questions. And you know, again, we know from deep and long experience that the better your questions are, the more likely you are to impress someone or wow someone in an interview situation. And the last thing then is feedback, actions, close, next steps, you know, whatever way you want to frame that. But it's really, really important that you have some form of control, that you have some form of shape, that you have some form of influence on what happens at the end of the interview. Have you done well? What's the feedback like? Am I a fit? Is there any concerns, issues, reservations that I can answer right here, right now, before we leave the interview? And then what are the next steps? What are the time scales? You know, where are we going with it? Where are we going with this process? So that's really, really important. So I'm doing that to help you set the scene for the session that we're going to go and do. Okay. And I guess, you know, if I think about the agenda for this morning, it's all around, you know, how to answer and react and respond to conflict questions. And what I really want to try and get you thinking about in the first instance is, why would someone ask you a question like this? By the way, I can see a couple of questions coming in here on chat. So by the way, feel free to ask questions if you've got any questions here, and I'll take them at the end in our Q&A session. But the interviewer is asking you conflict questions, and they're doing this because, firstly, this is a behavioral question, and we covered this topic last month. We cover it in depth in the course. And what they are doing is they want to ask you this question so they can see some or all of your personality, okay? And so it's really, really important that you understand, like, they're not asking you a question around conflict because they want to see how you know, how up for it you are, or maybe how aggressive you are, or whatever the case may be. They're asking it because they want to see how you deal with real life situations, and that's what that acronym stands for. Okay. So it's really, really important, and it might not necessarily be, and I think this is a really important bit, a conflict might not necessarily be about a massive row that you have had. Okay. It could be about a kind of a light disagreement on opinion. It could be about something going wrong from a deal perspective, from a timescale perspective, from a communication issue perspective. It could be to do with maybe the fact that you didn't get on with someone because there was a personality clash. It could be something to do with, maybe, again, as I've said there, kind of lack of resources. So again, if you think about, and I'm talking today about people who are really interested in working at tech businesses, if you think about what all the conflicts, like, basically there are a set number of kind of common conflicts or issues or problems that happen in these types of tech, SaaS, and software businesses. And you know, it could be around sales. It could be about missing quota. It could be around, you know, maybe managing a change in circumstances as part of a deal. Again, I'm talking about sales. If you're in marketing, you could be talking about something like, let's say, for example, a campaign not going the way it should have gone, okay, or not having the impact that it was supposed to have, right? So don't forget, that's conflict, because it's different from what was planned or agreed or scheduled or whatever the case may be. So really what I want to try and get you to think about here when you're thinking about conflict is, I want you to think about, number one, the type of business that you're interviewing for, okay? What do they do? And again, this is really basic fundamental stuff, but like, are they a software business? Are they a hardware business? Are they a services business? Do they have a combo of all three? And then, what are the things that goes wrong in those types of businesses? Is it client-led? Is it product-led? Is it support-led? Is it technical life cycle? Technical life cycle? Is it, as I said, I mentioned sales marketing. Is it something on the back end, from a finance or admin or legal perspective, right? So just try and have a think about that first, right? What are the things that go wrong in those types of businesses? And start preparing accordingly against that. Then you drop it down, right? And you start talking about the role that you do, right? So I'm going to give a couple of examples and scenarios, real life kind of case studies. But like, you've then got to go and think about, if you're a software developer, what are the really key problems and issues that happen in that role? And by the way, they happen in every business, right? So you're not calling something out that's really, really specifically down to you or down to maybe one of your colleagues. Like, projects go wrong, life cycles go wrong, they get missed. Product dev cycles, they get missed for lots of different reasons, because lots of different people are involved, and perhaps there's a communication issue. So again, hopefully you're getting and understanding what I'm saying there, right? So it's really, really important to think about the business that you're interviewing for, right? What are the kind of things that go wrong in that business? And then come down to the role and the team that you'd be working in, and really then start to prepare against, I guess, issues and problems that come from, that kind of side of things. When you're preparing to answer a conflict question, what I would always advise that you go and do is definitely try and come up with something where there was, where there was definitely conflict, right? So maybe a kind of a high pressure, high impact situation. And, so start with that, okay? And then maybe pick something that's a little softer, okay? And what I mean by a little softer is again, where I mentioned, those examples, maybe a personality clash, maybe a difference of opinion, maybe a differing view on how best to do something. Maybe it's down to poor communications, maybe it's down to a lack of resource, missed timeline, whatever the case may be. So pick a hard one, right? So something that was, I guess, really testy and maybe a little bit emotional, and then maybe pick a much softer one. And there's a real good reason for doing that. And when you start answering those questions, really what I want to try and get you to go and do is, don't talk about the conflict problem itself, but what we're going to do is we are going to use a method called STAR, okay, to basically go and answer the question, okay? And STAR is it's a really helpful tool, and I'm sure loads of you have come across this before in terms of your interview prep and research, perhaps in university, perhaps in job. And the STAR method basically gives you 4 key areas around how you would go and answer and respond to a typical type of question in this situation. So STAR, the acronym stands for, the abbreviation stands for situation, task, action, result, STAR. And look, what I am always really encouraging people to go and do is, when you're talking about the result, think about what you have learned specifically from that situation. What would you do differently? What would you not do again? And what would you apply and bring to this next future employer that you're hopefully going to land a job with? Okay, so that's really, really important, right? So if we think about what we're doing here, let me just reset a little on that one, right? Why are they asking you a conflict question? Okay, so they want to you to show off your personality. Okay, so they're not asking it specifically because they want to dig into a problem, but they want you to show your ability to be able to effectively tell the story, how you've read the situation, how you've reacted to a situation, what you did with the situation, and then what the outcome of that situation was, to make it from to make it change from a bad situation or not great situation into a better or good or improved situation. Okay, so that's what STAR is all about. Now, for all of you budding project managers or very experienced project managers out there, you're lucky today, because what I'm trying to do here is what I've done is I've basically used a project management interview and I'm a situation, I should say, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of role play out someone asking me this question, right? So look, I'm the project manager, I'm in an interview, and the interview says to me, Rob, tell me about a time when you recently handled a conflict situation at work. Really, really, really standard interview question. And definitely, so it's quite generic, but in this situation, what I would be doing is I would be using the STAR approach, and I would be applying it to my role, to their business, and I would be preparing against it, right? So in terms of the situation, well, look, what I need to go and do is I need to explain what the situation was, right? So in this situation, again, this is a dummy role play, just so you can kind of visualize it. I was brought in to a crisis CRM project that we were delivering for one of our customers. And the reason it was in crisis was it was majorly off scope. And what that meant was that we were going to miss the go live date that the client had scheduled, and we were going to miss it. We were going to miss it by a really long period of 3 months. And why was that a problem? Well, look, that was going to be like a huge overrun, a huge overspend. Client was going to miss a whole load of deliverables around them going live with their new platform, and it was going to have a direct impact on their customers. So you can see, like, basically, we had this crisis call where we were told if we didn't sort this out in the next 24, 48 hours, we were going to get booted off the project. So you can see straight away, right, that is a conflict situation, okay? Clearly, it's not an internal one. It's between a client and a CRM vendor in this instance. But like, there's major conflict there. So major emotion, obviously, anger on the client side, fear on the vendor, on the SaaS side, on the supplier side. Little bit of kind of craziness going around because people are running around like crazy trying to get things resolved, okay? And basically, my job as the project manager was, what I did was I had one-to-one the result, or the task, if you like, okay? I had one-to-ones with every single stakeholder in the project or on the project, both from a client and an internal resource perspective, because what I wanted to go and do was I wanted to figure out why this thing had gone so badly wrong. And was it our side? Was it their side? Was it a product side? So I was basically doing an investigation, and I did that in a very deep way, and I did that in a very quick, concise way. And basically what I found as part of doing those one-on-ones with stakeholders was actually there was a major conflict issue between the two key resources that were on the project, okay, both from the client side and our own side of things. And these guys, they basically had completely fallen out. They couldn't communicate, and they were doing everything possible to kind of damage each other's roles in this situation. So what I did as the senior project manager was I took both of those resources off the project. And the reason for me doing that was there was a blocker. There was just a pure personality clash. What I also did was, because these two guys were clashing, there was no communication going out to the extended teams. And I've changed the communications process, and we're now doing a daily update on video that goes out to all key stakeholders, so that when everyone starts their day or finishes their working day, they know exactly what has happened today. Are we on track, off track, and what's happening tomorrow? Okay. And the result of me taking this course of action was that we got the project back on track within a couple of weeks. And we ended up delivering the project. It was 1 month behind, as opposed to it being 3 months behind. Okay. And that was a major win, albeit it still wasn't an ideal situation, but it was a major, major win in terms of our business. And what basically the outcome of that was is that, you know, look, the customer was a little bit more happy than they were previously. And certainly my colleagues have recognized that, you know, I'm one of the key individuals that, you know, in terms of stepping up and perhaps moving myself into a leadership role from a project management perspective. What have I learned specifically? Well, look, I've learned that, you know, when there are early warning signals on a project, we probably need to be ringing the alarm bell a little sooner than we did this time around, so that we don't get ourselves into that major conflict situation. Okay. By the way, I'm not a project manager, so clearly there's a whole load of detail in there, and that, by the way, that's the end of the role play. But look, the reason that I'm kind of giving you that level of detail, and insight, is like, that is the level of detail that people are looking for. Okay, now clearly it might not necessarily need to be as long as that, but that's the level of detail that people are looking for, and in terms of maybe answering a question like that. And what that does is there is a real emphasis on telling a very good story, so that there is clarity, but really importantly, that you're answering the question, okay, with real context and substance, so that these guys, whatever role it is that you're interviewing for, these guys can really start to visualize you in situ, in place, doing the actual role. Okay. I'd love to hear from anyone who's on here from a project management perspective. If, by the way, if you think we should deal with that, or I could deal with that any better. So jump the chats into the Q&A there, or comments. So look, before we move, I'm just going to move over into Q&A to take some of these questions, folks. As I said to you, I've been talking about our course. You know, look, really, really quickly, 90% of our students get hired in 90 days. This is where these girls and guys are coming from, really diverse backgrounds, really diverse levels of experience. You know, some recent university graduates, some who are significantly established in terms of career. And look, really importantly, what do we do? Well, we help you get hired by organizations like these, okay? And that's what Ingenio Learning and our team and our business is all about, okay? So that's really, really important. The gift for anyone who's tuned in today is a significant discount on the list price of our course. And I really want to try and get you thinking about, what does 30 euros mean to you in terms of landing that dream job? I will say to you that our prices are going up from the 1st of August. They're going up by 10 euros. So look, if you want to get and lock in that price of 30 euros, you need to get purchasing by the end of this week. And that's really, really important. We also, for anyone who's got an interview coming up, we also do, I guess, private, personalized one-to-one career coaching sessions. And that's specifically with me, right? So perhaps you're struggling, lacking confidence. Perhaps you've got a particular interview that you want to go and prep for. And that's what those sessions are all about. If you want any more information on that,